Hey guys, this is Will at Third and Long. Today we are going to be looking at the Big 10 projected standings for the 2023 college football season. That's the win-loss records for every single team in the Big 10. Let's go ahead and get started. Hit that like button and subscribe also. What we are going to be looking at today is the K Ford Ratings website. The reason that I chose this website is just because it's a really good website that breaks down every single team, the whole schedule, plus where that team ranks in the Big Ten and nationally on offense, defense, and their strength of schedule. So the very first team that we're going to be looking at is Ohio State. They had a great year last year, probably should have beat Georgia, should have went to the national championship to play TCU, but they lost. Ryan Day is going to be breaking in a new quarterback. We don't know who that is. We have Brian Hartline, who is going to be calling plays this year, but it's still Ryan Day's offensive philosophy. They're going to have a five-star quarterback. They still have a Harrison Jr. at wideout. This team is stacked. Defense should be better. If you look at the top right here, we have what they are projected to do this year. So they have them going 11-1 during the regular season. The second-ranked team in the country. Number 1 offense, number 13 defense. That's pretty dang good. And at the very bottom right, we have them as the 19th most difficult strength of schedule. So let's just run through every single game and let's see what I think might happen. So versus Indiana, win. Youngstown State, win. WKU, win. Notre Dame, that's a game that could be a toss-up there because you just never know. And how good will a Sam Hartman be at Notre Dame? But I think Ohio State is just loaded. They are too talented. They are going to win. Maryland, win. At Purdue, win. Penn State, that's going to be a great game. That'll be a top 10 matchup right there. So, pretty difficult schedule right there during the middle, but I think Ohio State will beat Penn State. They're just too talented. At Wisconsin, Wisconsin should be much improved this year with Luke Fickell, but I think Ryan Day will win that. At Rutgers, win. Michigan State, win. Minnesota, they're not a pushover, but that's a win. At Michigan, here's the big one, saved for the very end of the year. 3 potential top 10 matchups for Ohio State this year. I think Michigan will win this game, but it's going to be close. I don't think they're going to get the brakes beat off of them like they did last year. Now, I'm not saying that Michigan's necessarily better than Ohio State. It's just we know what Michigan is. They have J.J. McCarthy. They have Blake Corum. They're going to be loaded. I think Michigan wins, but they'll have the chance to face off again. That's the thing. And Ohio State can still get into the Final Four even if they lose to Michigan. They proved that last year. So I think they'll finish the year 11-1, only losing to Michigan, but still very much in it and very well could win the national title this year. This team is going to be loaded and much better than last year. Now, coming up next, we have Michigan. At the top right, they have them going 10-2, so they actually are projecting 2 losses here. They have them as the number 4 team, number 8 on offense, 3 on defense. What a stacked team. And the number 42 strength of schedule. So a lot easier than Ohio State, but they have them with 1 more loss. Let's run through the schedule. I have a win at East Carolina, win at UNLV, win at Bowling Green, win at Rutgers, at Nebraska. Matt Rule's team, they're going to win it. At Minnesota, win. Indiana, win. At Michigan State, that's not even close these days. Win. Purdue, win. Penn State, another tough game. The Big Ten East is loaded every single year with these 3 top 10 teams here. But I think they'll beat Penn State, but I think it's going to be close. At Maryland, win. Versus Ohio State, they have them losing to Ohio State. I think they will win it, but I would not be surprised if Ohio State wins it. So I have Michigan going 12-0, running the table. But like I said, Michigan and Ohio State could very well get into the Final Four this year. If they were to face off again, I'd put my money on whoever doesn't win that first matchup. So if, like I'm projecting, Michigan wins the first time, I think Ohio State will beat them the second time. They showed last year, once they lose, they get way better. But I think they'll lose that first matchup during the regular season. Michigan goes 12-0. Next team, Penn State, James Franklin's team. They got Manny Diaz on the defense. He's a great coordinator. They have them going 10-2 or 9-3, pretty close. The number 9 team. Offense 20, that's good. Defense 5, they're loaded. Number 40 strength of schedule. They have Drew Aller at quarterback. They have Nick Singleton at running back. There's going to be a pretty good team. They have them, so let's just run through the schedule real quick. West Virginia, win. Delaware, win. At Illinois, win. Iowa, win. Iowa's offense is atrocious. It's a complete dumpster fire, but they always have a solid stacked defense. At Northwestern, win. UMass, they've won, 3 games in 4 years? That's going to be a complete blowout. And then at Ohio State, I have that as a loss, but I'm not overlooking Penn State. This is a legit team, and they are built well, but I think they're going to win that. Indiana, win. At Maryland, win. Michigan, loss. Rutgers, win. Michigan, win. Well, you know what? I'm sorry, I had a loss for Michigan. So I have Penn State going 10-2 during the regular season. They will still finish the year in the top 10. Like I said, the Big 10 East is stacked. They are loaded. This is the 3rd best team in the division, but yet still a top 10 team in the country. Penn State will have a great bowl game because it's very possible that Ohio State and Michigan both get in the Final Four, so Penn State would get the next bowl bid for the Big Ten. So good for them. They are coming up. Next, let's move on to Maryland. We have Mike Locksley as the coach. Dan Enos left to be the offensive coordinator at, I believe it was Arkansas. I don't think there's anything lost there. I'm not a Dan Enos fan personally. They're bringing in Josh Gaddis as the coordinator, the one who got let go from Miami. I'm not a fan of him either. I think he's a pretty bad coordinator, but he did work with Locksley over there at Alabama for a while. They still have Tagliova as the quarterback there. Let's run through the schedule. Let's see what we got. They have them going 7-5, 42 best team, offense 45, defense 29, 30th schedule ranking. Townsend, win. Charlotte, win. Virginia, win. Michigan State, win. Indiana, win. So I have them starting out 5-0. That'll be a really good start. They'll probably be in the top 25. And then at Ohio State, that'll be a loss. Illinois, loss. Do not overlook Illinois. They are a competitive team with a really good defense. And then Northwestern, win. And then we kind of go through a bad stretch here. Penn State, loss. At Nebraska, I think Nebraska will beat them because things will start clicking for Nebraska later in the year under Matt Rule. And then Michigan, loss. But they rebound and beat Rutgers. I have them going 7-5. So the opportunity for an 8-win season with the bowl game. Next, Michigan State. Mel Tucker's team. How far they've fallen since, what was that? Was that 2021 when they got into the top 10 and were having a great year and he got that big contract? Things aren't looking so good right now. But they have them barely going 6-6, so barely making a bowl game. 45 best team, offense 56, defense 38, number 8 strength of schedule. So pretty rough. But let's run through their schedule. Central Michigan, win. Richmond, win. Washington, I think that's a loss. That's a pretty good out-of-conference game until next year when that will be in conference technically. And then Maryland, I have that as a loss. Like I said, Maryland is not to be overlooked. Iowa, loss. They're going to be better this year because the offense can't possibly be worse. Rutgers, win. Michigan, loss. Minnesota, loss. I think PJ Fleck's team is a pretty good team. Nebraska, loss. Like I said, things will be clicking that second half of the season for them. At Ohio State, loss. Indiana, win. Penn State, loss. Really rough end schedule to the season. I have Mel Tucker's team finishing 4-8 this year, not getting a bowl game. Next, Indiana. So they have them projected to go 4-8, so not bowl eligible. Number 80th best team, that's pretty bad. Offense 74, defense 99. That's pretty horrendous right there. With those bad rankings, they have the 7th toughest schedule. So those two things don't match together. Let's run through the schedule. Let's see what we think they're going to do. First, Ohio State starting out with a loss. Indiana State, win. Louisville, loss. Louisville's not bad, so they're definitely going to lose that game. Akron, win. At Maryland, loss. At Michigan, loss. Rutgers, loss. Rutgers is a tough physical team. They're going to lose that. At Penn State, loss. Wisconsin, Luke Fickell have things firing them. That's a loss. Illinois, like I said, they're pretty good. Loss. Michigan State, loss. At Purdue, loss. So I have Indiana finishing 2-10. A horrible year for them. The Hoosiers have a long way to go to build things back. Rutgers, Greg Schiano's team, they have them going 4-8, 81 as their ranking. Offense 104, that's pretty bad. Defense 57, 11th. Strength of schedule, let's run through their schedule, see what we got. Northwestern win. Temple, I think they'll win that. Virginia Tech will be an out-of-conference loss. That one could go either way, but I'll side with the Hokies on that one. At Michigan, that's obviously a loss. Wagner win. At Wisconsin, Fickle and Phil Longo will be ready to go by that point. That's a loss. Michigan State, I think Michigan State will win that one. That'll be a loss. At Indiana, they'll win that just because Indiana is worse than Rutgers. Ohio State, loss. At Iowa, loss. At Penn State, loss. Maryland, loss. So I have Greg Schiano's team going 4-8. That's not a good year, but it's a tough schedule, and they're just not very good. But that's good for the team they have for being in the Big Ten East, basically. Okay, now let's look at the other side. We have Wisconsin. A lot of big changes this year. They have them going 9-3, 19th best team, offense 43. That'll be better this year, definitely than that. The defense, number 11, that's pretty good. 60th ranked schedule. So they definitely have the schedule to show a lot of improvement this year because they don't have to necessarily play everybody in the Big Ten. So let's run through it. Like we said, we have Luke Fickell here. We have Phil Longo with the air raid on offense. Wisconsin is finally getting a modern offense. And we have Tanner Mordecai, who transferred over from SMU as the quarterback. He is going to light things up here. So Buffalo, win, starting out the year looking good. Washington State, I have that as a loss. That's a tough out-of-conference game. DJU there, they're going to be a tough team to play. Do not overlook them. They won 10 games last year, so I think Washington State will upset Wisconsin here because Luke Fickell's team has a lot of learning to do under a new coach. Georgia Southern, win. Purdue, win. Rutgers, win. Iowa, I think that's another loss just because Iowa is a mature team under Ferentz. They've been playing in the same system for a while, so they'll just be more mature there. So they'll upset Wisconsin there. And then we'll be moving on to Illinois. Win. Ohio State, loss, but that'll be a really fun game to watch. At Indiana, win. Northwestern, win. Nebraska, win. At Minnesota, win. So I have Luke Fickell's team finishing the year hot, that very last stretch. Because like I said, the offense will be clicking. Tanner Mordecai should adapt pretty well to Phil Longo's offense because he was in Rhett Lashley's offense back at SMU. So things should be somewhat similar for him, and they will still have a pretty good ground. The running back there has had back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons, so the team should be pretty stacked. Phil Longo should be pretty good with that offense with Tanner Mordecai. Fickell's a great coach. I have Wisconsin finishing the year 9-3. Pretty good year for them. Next, we have Iowa. Kirk Ferentz, quarterback. Cade McNamara, the transfer from Michigan. They have a garbage schedule. For being in the Big Ten, they don't play anyone, so things set up pretty good for Iowa to have a pretty good year this year. They have one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the country, but they have one of the worst offenses, if not the worst offense in the country. But let's kind of look what we were projected out here. We have them projected at 8-4, 27th best team, offense 86. They were way worse than that last year. So they're obviously saying they can't get worse, so they must be doing better this year. Number 1 defense, 61st strength of schedule. So pretty easy for being in the Big Ten. Let's run through it. Let's see what we think the Hawkeyes will do this year. So Utah State, I have that as a win. Iowa State, win. Western Michigan wins. So at this point, they're 3-0. Things are looking pretty good. Penn State, I have that as a loss. I think Iowa can very well win that game just because their defense is so good. This will be a low-scoring game. It'll be a slug it out. They'll be fighting in the trenches here, but I think they'll lose as of right now. And then they'll rebound, though. They'll beat Michigan State. They'll beat Purdue. They'll beat Wisconsin. Like I said, Iowa is the older team with a great defense, so they can always rely on that. I think they'll upset Wisconsin there. But then they'll turn around, and they'll lose to Minnesota. Minnesota is not to be overlooked. They always play competitive. And then they'll beat Northwestern, beat Rutgers, beat Illinois, and beat Nebraska. So they'll finish the year on a 4-game win streak. I have Iowa going 10-2. It's not so much because they're a great team, but it's just basically because they don't play anyone. They don't play Michigan. They don't play Ohio State. So they avoid the toughest teams, and they're a good team. So 10-2, pretty good year. They could win their side of the conference. Next, we have Illinois. They always have a great run game. They have a great defense. They had a great defense last year. Brett Bielema, he's a great coach, old school wise. He always plays good defense, and they run the ball, but they're not going to light it up. So they have them going 7-5, 41 as a national ranking. Offense 79, that's not good. Defense 6, that's pretty dang good. And 53rd toughest schedule. Let's see how they'll do. I have them beating Toledo, beating Kansas, although Kansas is not a bad team. I just think that he's going to be so physical, they'll beat Kansas. They'll lose to Penn State, beat FAU, beat Purdue, lose to Nebraska. Nebraska's going to be kind of a similar team to me this year. So they'll lose to them. At Maryland, win, lose to Wisconsin because Wisconsin will have things firing at that point of the year. And then at Minnesota, I think they'll lose that. Like I said, PJ Fleck has a good team. Indiana win. At Iowa loss. Win at Northwestern. So I have them going 7-5. Potential for another 8-game win there for Illinois. Next, we have PJ Fleck's Minnesota team. They have them projected at 7-5. 32nd best team. Offense 52. Number 10 defense. But a tough schedule. So they have the 17th toughest schedule. Let's look at their schedule and let's see how we think they're going to do. I think they'll beat Nebraska. Nebraska's a young team. Matt Rule won't be fully ready yet. He has to completely flip that roster. So they'll win there. Eastern Michigan win. I think they'll lose to Mac Brown's Tar Heels there. They'll just have a pretty good offense. And I don't think Minnesota has the offense to be able to exploit the Tar Heels' horrible defense. Northwestern win. Louisiana win. Michigan loss. At Iowa win. Like I said, that'll be the upset there. Michigan State win just because Michigan State's horrible. They'll beat Illinois. They'll beat Purdue. And then a tough end of the season, they'll lose to Ohio State because Ohio State's better. And then they'll lose to Wisconsin because Luke Fickell's team will be hot at that point of the year. So I have Minnesota finishing 8-4. So a pretty good year for them. Next, we'll be looking at Nebraska. So Matt Rule's there. He has Satterfield there as the offensive coordinator. Kind of an old school ground and pound fullback kind of guy. Scott Frost left things bare there, so Matt Rule has a big rebuild. So they have them projected at 6-6, 52nd best team, offense 68, defense 48, 45th toughest schedule. Let's kind of look at how things will be. I think there's going to be a rough year for Nebraska just because of the complete rebuild. Minnesota, loss. They're just going to out-physical them. At Colorado, I have that as a loss. I think Colorado's going to lose that first game to, was it TCU? But then they're going to win versus Colorado just because Nebraska has a lot of growing pains. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Cornhuskers beat Colorado there just because Colorado's not good either. But I think they'll lose. NIU win. Louisiana Tech win. Michigan loss. Illinois win. Northwestern win. Purdue, who's a tough team, loss. Michigan State, I think that'll be a loss. Maryland win, and then a tough end of the season. Loss at Wisconsin, loss at Iowa. Pretty tough end to the season there for them. I have them going 5-7. Doing, better than last year, showing improvement. Matt Rule will get them there, but it's going to take time to flip that roster because the roster was pretty bad. But 5-7, just missing a bowl game. Next, we have Purdue. Purdue's going to be an interesting team to watch. They have them going 5-7, 53rd best team, offense 48, defense 58, 18th toughest schedule. So pretty tough. So let's just kind of run through things. But the coach there, was it Ryan Walters? He was the defensive coordinator at Illinois, so he's now the head coach there. He's changing things for Purdue. He brought in Hudson Card, who was the Texas quarterback transfer. He brought in Graham Harrell, who was that old Texas Tech quarterback under Mike Leach. So they're going to kind of have an air raid system at Purdue. So that'll be kind of interesting to see how that works, but it might take some time to get the roster right. But let's see how they'll do his first year. So Fresno State win, Virginia Tech, I think they will win that. And Syracuse, loss. Wisconsin, loss. Illinois, loss. At Iowa, that's going to be tough, loss. Ohio State, tough, loss. Nebraska, they're at Nebraska. I think they'll win that. They'll kind of have a good game showing up there, and 2 first-year coaches there. And then at Michigan, loss. Minnesota, loss. At Northwestern, win. Indiana, win. I have them going 5-7. Not a bad year considering the complete rebuild and flipping to a whole new style of play. But they'll be kind of a fun team to watch, and I think they'll be a interesting team and not to be overlooked. So they're one of those teams that could potentially upset someone this year. And last but not least, Northwestern. Pat Fitzgerald got canned. He's gone. A lot of turmoil there in the locker room. They have them at 4-8. 83rd best team. Offense, 124. So almost practically dead last. Defense, 39th. Strength of schedule, 51, so not too bad, but the team's not good, so that doesn't help. Let's run through the schedule, see how this team's going to do. I think it's going to be an awful year for them. So at Rutgers, loss. UTEP, win. At Duke, loss. Duke is not to be overlooked with Mike Elko. That's a pretty good team and a good quarterback. Minnesota, loss. Penn State, loss. Howard, they'll beat them. At Nebraska, loss. Maryland, loss. Iowa, loss. At Wisconsin, that's definitely a loss. Purdue, loss. Illinois, loss. So that's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight losses to end the year. That's a really tough second half of the season. So no matter how good they think they're doing that first half, they're going to finish bad. I have Northwestern finishing 2-10, having a complete bad year. It's not their fault. Coach just got fired. They weren't very good with him anyways, so it is going to be a tough year for them. They have a long road to go. So that's my breakdown of the Big Ten East and West. Pretty good conference. Some legitimate teams vying for getting into the Final Four and getting to the national championship. Mainly Ohio State and Michigan. They could both get in again. It is very possible, even if one beats the other. The road is clear for them. Penn State's kind of a dark horse there. I think they'll be on the outside looking in, but a very competitive conference. So that's my breakdown of the Big Ten win-loss records for every single team. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks.